Hey everybody, it's Jason Blah here, and today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about grip strength gains, and that's with 3Zs. Let me put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. Because this is a point of contention out there in the community. You see a lot of people who are like, well, I wear straps for my high volume work or my real heavy pulling sets, whether it's rows, deadlifts, whatever, and I'll just do separate grip training work. And here's the reality. Anyone who's watching a video like this, anyone who's probably not already at the world level in some strength sport, isn't actually going to do that. That is a BS excuse that people make. Because all the guys who actually really do that, their lives revolve around strength sports. In other words, they don't mind spending an extra hour every single week working on their grip. All right, and you need to understand that difference. Most people who go out there and make that claim are not going to dedicate an hour of their week for the next 5 years to grip training. So that doesn't work. So the first thing that people need to do is drop their straps. And the reason I say that is that the actual reason a lot of people wear straps actually kills their grip gains. They're like, well, I wear straps at the end of my pulling workouts. Maybe I do a bunch of rows or pull-ups after my deadlifts. Well, and if I do several sets of deadlifts, I put the straps on when my grip starts to give out. Or for my higher volume work. Well, what builds grip strength? High volume work. So in other words, that's like saying, well, guys, I try to quit using my biceps on my high volume curl workouts. The first 3 sets of curls I do, I try to use my biceps, and after that I try to just cheat and not train my biceps anymore. Because God forbid that your biceps should actually grow. You should subject them to any volume. It's the same thing with your grip training. Volume is one of the best things you can possibly do for grip strength, and it has to do with the muscle fiber composition in your forearm, hands, things like that. They respond very, very well to higher volume training, especially forearms, and that's where an enormous amount of your grip strength comes from, is your forearms, your forearm flexors and everything, right? They respond well to high volume. So the very best thing in the world you could possibly do for building your grip is to drop the straps completely, not ever start using them. Do high volumes of pulling without straps. And the thing is, you get guys, and it's this weird bodybuilder mentality that, well, I don't want my grip to become a limiting factor in my back work. To which I would say, then build your grip up. In other words, you're creating something that doesn't have to exist in the first place. In other words, had you just done tons of pulling and high volume pulling for your back without straps, it wouldn't ever be a problem to begin with. And the only reason these guys are struggling with grip sometimes is because they're cheating, using sloppy form, and using weights they're not strong enough to handle for a large number of sets. Right? It's all these cheat reps, not doing strict pulling. That's the problem. That's why their grip is giving out. The reality is, if you do large volumes of grip work, your grip strength will build up proportionate to your back strength, and then what happens? It never becomes a limiting factor. And it's one thing when we're talking about deadlifts, because I'm going to get into this further. The real reason we need grip strength is deadlifts. There's no reason for your grip strength, if you're on a balanced training program, your grip strength should never be a limiting factor on rows, pull-ups, chin-ups, things like that. It's just not conceivable unless you train like a complete jackass. That is never going to happen. The only time this argument even applies is to the deadlift, right? Because guys are like, man, I can't hold on to the bar on my 8th set of deadlifts for 450 pounds. My grip just starts giving out. But when you're doing rows with 275, I'm sorry, there's just no excuse for that. There absolutely isn't, other than you've never built your grip strength to begin with. It will never be a limiting factor on these lighter exercises if you built your grip strength up to begin with, and particularly if you're using the appropriate type of bars and everything to row with, right? Same thing, you go to chin-up bars, there's plenty of chin-up bars that have a smaller grip. You should be able to find one that's not a 2-inch diameter pipe that you have to hold on to. It shouldn't be a factor. And that's the thing, guys will say, well, I struggle finding the right bars for rows. All right, fine, but use the pull-up bars then. You do large volumes of pull-ups and chin-ups, your grip strength will develop on that, and it's not going to be a limiting factor. But the main thing is that the number one tool you can use to build grip strength, and this will carry over to your deadlifts, high volume pulling without straps. High volume pulling. Tons of rows, pull-ups, cleans, whatever, everything. That's how you build your grip up to begin with. Then, if your grip strength is still a problem, then you might need grip-specific work only for the deadlift, but you should never, ever, ever develop this problem on your lat exercises and your upper body back exercises. If you have, then you need to go back to square one. You're training incorrectly to begin with. You need to tighten your form up, focus on building your grip, holding onto the bar tight, using correct technique, and your grip strength problems will go away within a couple months. And then you'll be okay. You'll be able to get all your back development, and you'll never have this mentality of, I don't want my grip to be a limiting factor in developing my back, because it won't be. Again, that only happened because you created an imbalance artificially to begin with. It just doesn't become a problem on a proper program using proper technique. It isn't an issue. And if it is, you've done something wrong. You need to start back over with your training programming. Now, if it starts to become a problem on your deadlift, in spite of all this, because, some people just don't have big hands. Some people have smaller hands. Some people might not have access to the best bars. Some people have smaller hands, not access to the best bars, and they just develop really strong posterior chain and back very quickly. Their strength goes up more quickly than their deadlift can develop. Okay, that does, or than their grip can develop. That can be a problem, in which case you're going to need some specialized grip training. What I'm going to recommend, we go back to what else can we do for volume. How about your conditioning work? Farmer's walks. Any sort of weighted carries will build your grip up. So what we need to think about in terms of your general physical preparedness and your conditioning work, that stuff needs to carry over to what you're doing, right? GPP and conditioning can still have a sport-specific carryover, and I know that sounds like a contradiction, but how about farmer's walks? If your grip is a weak link in your deadlift, maybe farmer's walks or any sort of weighted carry with a trap bar or farmer's walk handles or whatever. Kettlebells, if you have access to big heavy kettlebells, do your farmer's walks with those. In other words, you need to include a grip training component to your conditioning work. All right, that will work wonders for you. In fact, that can be a good way to build your grip strength up, even if your grip hasn't become a limiting factor on something like your deadlift. Because there's nothing wrong with having more grip strength, and if you can build more grip strength while you're doing your conditioning work, then hey, more power to you. It can also be a preemptive way to never develop a grip strength imbalance. Incorporate weighted carries as part of your general physical preparedness. All right, that's a fantastic tool. And if all else fails, this is where the one exercise I harp on all the time, we say rack pulls are stupid. I say that all the time. I really think they are. Unless you're talking about below the knee, those have a very specific, sport-specific carryover for advanced powerlifters that not everyone will ever need to use. Only some people will ever benefit from it. But when we're talking about the other ones above the knee, they're a grip training tool. One of the better ones out there. You pull from blocks. I don't recommend you do on the racks, to be honest, because I think it destroys bars. I think it's dumb. It's just not a good idea to have the metal on metal. You can do them off of blocks, though. Do block pulls. That's one of the best grip training tools that you will ever have available, mainly because you can lift more weight than you will lift on a deadlift. And so if your deadlift is 500 pounds for 3 reps and you're struggling with grip on that, you can probably do above the knee rack pulls with 600 plus pounds, maybe 700. Right? In which case you're going to get little short bursts of grip power because you don't have to pull it as far as on a regular deadlift, so it's a shorter rep. Right? You can pull and then set it down, pull and then set it down. And you can re-get your grip. And since it's going to be a faster pull, you're going to have more load in your hands for a shorter burst. And this will train the other component of your grip strength, because all the volume helps in certain ways with your grip training. But if that isn't working, then you're going to have to find a way to overload your grip with a heavier weight. And that's the best tool that you have available for that. And again, is everyone going to need that? No, I'll tell you right now, if everything else is in place and you're training properly, 90% of you will never need to use this as a grip training tool. But you know what? 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10 people might need to at a certain point, in which case block pulls, instead of necessarily rack pulls, because block pulls are better. It's the same thing, it's just easier on the equipment. But yeah, block pulls without straps. And not because they build up other muscles, they don't. It's inferior to deadlifts for building muscle, way inferior. But it can build your grip strength up because it allows you to overload a heavier weight into your hands. And this is, again, a specific carryover because grip strength is about holding weight in your hands. Probably the final tool that you will ever need. And so that's the direction I would go if all else fails. And that pretty much sums up everything that most of you need to know about grip training. It really isn't that complicated. For most people, it's a problem that should never develop to begin with, but if it does, this is what you do about it. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.